Okay, I am live, so I just need to put my phone up real quick. So, hello, welcome back to another video. Today is day 61 of the plan, and I will be reading 1 Samuel chapters 5 through 8. And so, yeah, it's like going. So, yep, so today is day. I blanked. Tripod will not stand up. So yeah, today is day 61 of the Bible plan, and I will be reading chapters 5 through 8. So, let's probably get started. Make sure everything's going in right. There's 2 people watching. So, yeah. Um, Chapter 5. The Ark in Philistines' hands. After the Philistines had captured the Ark of God, they took it from Ebenezer to Ashdod, brought it to the temple of Dagon, and placed it next to the statue. When the people of Ashdod got up early the next morning, there was Dagon fallen with his face to the ground before the Ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and returned him to his place. But when they got up early the next morning, there was Dagon falling to his face to the ground before the Ark of the Lord. This time Dagon's head and both his hands were broken and lying on the threshold. Only Dagon's torso remained. That is why still today the priests of Dagon and everyone who enters the temple of Dagon of Ashdod do not step on Dagon's threshold. The Lord's hand was heavy on the people of Ashdod. He terrified the people of Ashdod and its territory and inflicted them with tumors. When the people of Ashdod saw what was happening, they said, "The ark of Israel's God must not stay here with us, because his hand is strongly against us and our God Dagon." So they called the Philistine rulers and teachers and asked, "What should we do with the ark of Israel's God?" "The ark of Israel's God should be moved to Gath," they replied. So they moved the ark of Israel's God. After they moved it, the Lord's hand was against the city of Gath, causing great panic. Afflicted the people of the city, from the youngest to the oldest, with the outbreak of tumors. The people of Gath sent the ark to God of Ekron, but when it got there, Ekron cried out, "They moved the ark of Israel's God to kill us and our people." The Ekronites called the Philistine rulers and said, "Send the ark of Israel God away. Let it return to its place, so it won't kill us and our people, or fear death pervade the city." God's hand was oppressing them. Those who did not die were afflicted with tumors, and the outcry of the city went up to heaven. Chapter 6. The return of the ark. When the ark of the Lord had been in Philistine territory for 7 months, the Philistines summoned the priests and the diviners and pleaded, "What shall we do with the ark of the Lord? Tell us how we can send it back to its place." They replied, "We send the ark of Israel's God away. Do not send it without an offering. Send back a guilt offering to him, and you will be healed. Then the reason his hand hasn't been removed from you will be revealed." They asked, "What guilt offering should we send back to him?" And they answered, 5 gold tumors and 5 gold mice, corresponding to the number of Philistine rulers. Since there was one plague for both of you and your rulers, make images of your tumors and your mice that are destroying the land. Give glory to the Israel God, and perhaps he will stop oppressing you, your gods in your land. Why harden your hearts as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened theirs? When he afflicted them, then they sent Israel away, and Israel left. Now they prepared 1 new cart and 2 milk cows that had never been yoked. Hitch the cow to the cart, but take the cows away and pin them up. Take the ark of the Lord, place in the cart, and put the gold objects that you're sending him as a guilt offering in the box beside the ark. Send it off and let it go its way. Then watch. If it goes up the road to the homeland towards Beth Shemesh, it is the Lord who has made this terrible trouble for us. However, if it doesn't, we'll know that it's not his hand that's punished us. It is something that happened to us by chance." The men did this. Took 2 milk cows, hitched them to the cart, and combined their calves in the pen. Then they put the ark of the Lord on the cart along with the box containing gold mice and the image of the tumors. The cows went straight up the road to Beth Shemesh. They stayed on that one highway, lowing as they went, and never strayed to right or left. The Philistine rulers were walking behind them to the territory of Beth Shemesh. The people of Beth Shemesh were harvesting wheat in the valley when they had looked up and saw the ark. They were overjoyed to see it. The cart came to the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh and stopped there near a large rock. People of the city chopped up the cart and offered the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. The Levites removed the ark of the Lord along with the box containing the gold objects and placed them on a large rock. The day the people of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings and made sacrifices to the Lord. And the 5 Philistine rulers observed this. They returned to Ekron that same day. As a guilt offering to the Lord, the Philistines had sent back 1 goat tumor for each city: Ashdod, Gaza, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron. The number of gold mice also corresponded to the number of Philistine cities and the 5 rulers, the fortified cities, and the outlying villages. The large rock on which the ark of the Lord was placed is still in the field of Joshua at Beth Shemesh today. God struck down the people of Beth Shemesh because they looked inside the ark of the Lord. He struck down 70 persons. The people mourned because the Lord struck down Beth Shemesh asked, "Who will stand in the presence of the Lord, this holy God? To whom should the ark go from here?" They sent the messengers from the residents of Kiriath Jearim, saying, "The Philistines have returned the ark of the Lord. Come down and get it." Halfway through chapter 7, so people of Kiriath Jearim came from the ark of the Lord and took it to Adab's house from the hill. They consecrated his son Eliezer to take care of it. Victory at Mizpah. Time went by until 12 years had passed since the ark had taken Kiriath Jearim. Then the whole house of Israel longed for the Lord. Samuel told them, "If you are returning to the Lord with all your heart, get rid of the foreign gods and Asherahs that are among you. Dedicate yourselves to the Lord and worship only him. Then he will rescue you from the Philistines." So the Israelites removed the Baals and the Asherahs and only worshipped the Lord. Samuel said, "Gather all of Israel at Mizpah, and I will pray to the Lord on your behalf." When they gathered at Mizpah, they drew the water and poured it out in the Lord's presence. They fasted that day, and there they confessed, "We have sinned against the Lord." And Samuel judged the Israelites at Mizpah. When the Philistines heard that the Israelites had gathered at Mizpah, their rulers marched out towards Israel. When the Israelites heard about this, they were afraid because of the Philistines. The Israelites said to Samuel, "Don't stop crying out to the Lord for God for us, so that he'll save us from the Philistines." And Samuel took a young lamb and offered it as a whole burnt offering to the Lord. He cried out to the Lord on behalf of Israel, and the Lord answered him. Samuel was offering burnt offerings as the Philistines approached to fight against Israel. The Lord thundered loudly against the Philistines that day and threw them such confusion that they were defeated by Israel. Then all the men of Israel charged out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines, striking them down all the way into a place toward below Beth-kar. Afterwards, Samuel took a stone and set it upright between Mizpah and Shen. He named it Ebenezer, explaining, "The Lord had helped us to this point." So the Philistines were subdued and did not invade Israel's territory again. The Lord's hand was against the Philistines all Samuel's life. The cities from Ekron to Gath, which were taken from Israel, were restored. Israel even rescued their surrounding territories from Philistine control. There was also peace between Israel and all the Amorites. Samuel judged Israel throughout his life. Every year he would go on a circuit to Beth-Gilgal and Mizpah, and he would judge Israel at all these locations. And he would return to Ramah because his home was there. He judged Israel there and built an altar to the Lord there. Chapter 8, the final chapter, Israel demanding for a king. When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as judges over Israel. His first son was named Joel, and second was Abijah. They were judges in Beersheba. However, his sons did not walk in his ways. They turned towards dishonest profit, took bribes, and prevent justice. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and went to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, "Look, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Therefore appoint a king to judge us the same as the other nations have." When they said, "Give us a king to judge us," Samuel considered their demand wrong, so he prayed to the Lord. The Lord told him, "Listen to the people and everything they say to you. They have not rejected you. They have rejected me as their king. They are doing the same thing to you that they have done until this day, abandoning me and worshiping other gods. Listen to them." But Solomon warned them and told them the customary rights of the king who reigned over them. Samuel told the words of the Lord to the people who were asking for a king. He said, "These are the rights of the king who will reign over you. He'll take your sons and put them to his use in chariots, on his horses, or running from the chariots. He can appoint them for use of commanders of 1,000 of commanders or 50s, to plow his ground and reap his harvest, or to make his weapons, war, and equipment for his chariots. He can take daughters to become perfumes, cooks, and bakers. He can take your best friends, vineyards, and olive charge and give them to his servants. He can take a tenth of your grain in your vineyards and give them to his officials and servants. He can take your male servants, your female servants, your best young men, and your donkeys, and use them for his work. He can take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become servants. When that day comes, you will cry out because the king you chose yourself. The Lord will answer you on that day. The people refused to listen to Samuel. No, they said, we must have a king over us. Then we'll be like the other nations. Our kings will judge us, go out before us, and fight our battles. Samuel listened to all the people's words and then repeated them to the Lord. Listen to them. The Lord said to Samuel, appoint a king for him. Then Samuel told the men of the city, each of you go back to your city. So that is all the reading for today. My camera's right there. It starts out in chapter 5, talking about how the ark, after the Philistines had acquired it, how they started having curses and like tumors and all that. So they passed it along, and they started having tumors and all that stuff, and so they passed it along, and it kept on going, kind of like a game of hot potato. And then eventually, it got returned back to Israel, and they sent it in a cart with 2 cows pulling it. And so they sacrificed cows and used the wood to burn it. And so then they were overjoyed to have the ark back. And then they looked inside, and 70 men died. But then they had a victory at Mizpah, and so they defeated the Philistines there. And so everything seemed all good. But then Israel started demanding for a king, and God said that all this bad stuff would happen, but listen to them, and then they'll see what happens, basically. And so they wanted a king, and you said not to, but they wanted one anyways, and then it kind of ends off there. So that is all the reading for today. So I hope you've had a good day so far. Have a great rest of the day. Remember, God loves you, and goodbye.